We'll next discuss how to use the text box tool. The text box tool simply allows us to include a text box in our form, hence why it's called the text box tool. The way we would add a text box is similar to how we would deal with labels or buttons or any other tool. We can just click and drag, but it's everything you need for the tools would be found in the toolbox window. And the text box tool is one of those. Now, granted, since it's sorted in alphabetical order, you're going to want to go near the end of the list. But what this does is it actually allows the user to type something while the program is running. So this is where we would have our user input. So for example, maybe I would write a program where I have a text box and I enter something, and then maybe there's a button where when I click on it, another pop-up would appear that displays the text that was entered in the text box. Don't be surprised if we actually do that example in a little bit, but all this really does is just allows us to type stuff while the program is running. And of course, the text box has its own set of properties, and we're not going to look at all of them, but we will mention some of the common ones that you would be using in your programs. And we've seen these before, but I just want to mention that these are properties that are common to text boxes. So we have the name of the text box. So this would be just like the name of the object. So we can think of the text box itself as a class, and every text box we add is an object of that class. So this name would be the name of that text box object, and we can use that in our code. We have the location, so that would tell us the X and Y coordinates of where this text box would be located in our form. We would have the font, which would dictate what the font and style and color of the actual text that would appear in the text box. And then of course we would have the visible property, which would determine whether or not the text box would appear when we run the program. We'll now do an example of adding a text box to our form. So we'll go to our toolbox. And let's see here. Let's find toolbox. Text box, sorry. Text box. There we go, text box. All right, so there's our text box. We'll just move it down here for now. And let's do some things with the properties. So let's go here, and we are going to change a few things. We're going to change the name. So let's say that we call this TB test. Okay. And that's about all we need to do here. So let's go ahead and just start up the program here. And notice that with this text box, we can put in whatever we want. And nothing happens if I hit enter, but we'll go ahead and exit it. Yep. So we can add some text to it, so we can type. That's the whole purpose. We can add some text, but let's do some stuff with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually change the contents of my button here. So let's change some things with this. So before we were changing the label, the text of our label. So let's comment that out. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to display a message box here. And let's say we're going to display your name is, and then we're going to use an ampersand to concatenate a string, and we can actually use the text from our text box. And we can put whatever the user typed there, and then actually do something with it. So we can actually say tb test.text. Okay. So what will happen is if I type something in the text box and I click on this button, it's going to say your name is whatever we typed there. Okay. All right. So now let's do some more stuff. Let's say we change. Let's just try that out real quick just to make sure that it works. So if I just click on my button as is, your name is blank. Okay. So I'm gonna do Matt because that's my name. Click on my button. Your name is Matt. Okay, so we need to add a space there. That's no problem. We'll exit. So what we need to do is we need to add a space right there. That way there's an actual space with between the is and the name. All right. Let's do something here. We see that we have quite a few components to like a very simple form. So let's rearrange some things here. So let's move exit down here. And And then let's move the text box up here. Maybe we'll put the button right here. And let's add the label here. And actually, I'm going to change some things. Let's change the text of the label. So let's say enter, because we can create a simple form here that would have the user enter a name, and click the button. Okay, so let's put that there. Okay. Actually, we're going to do some things here. We're going to move that there. There we go. That seems pretty simple. And then let's change the button text. Let's just change that to something else. There we go. Okay, so here we have our label that says enter your name and click the button. And then here we have our text box that would have the person. And then I'm going to move the exit over here just so it lines up. That looks nice. Okay, let's run this. That looks like a pretty nice form, doesn't it? So we can put in here the name. We'll click enter. Your name is Matt. And then we click OK. And we click on exit. And there we go. So we've added, we made some changes to our other stuff, but now we got a nice little text box where we can type in whatever we want. And then we would click on the enter button and we would have a little nice little message box display that would say your name is whatever it is that you typed in your text box. So yeah, that's pretty cool. We'll conclude our lecture by taking a look at some of the statements that we have already seen in some of our examples. So it would be a good idea to know exactly what these statements do and how they work. The first statement we'll take a look at is the close method. So basically, if we type something like me.close, it's going to call the close method for our form class. Now, what is me in this case? Well, me is the object or the instance of the form class. So think of this like the this keyword in Java. So whenever we had an object and we used the keyword this, that just meant that we were talking about that particular object of the class. Same thing here is true for form. So me in this case would be the name of the current object of the form that we're looking at. So what this means is if we want to use the close method, well, we have to specify which form we're closing. Our program may have like 5 or 6 different forms, and if I just entered close, well, which one do I close? Do I close the first one? Do I close all of them? So we have to specify. Just like if we have a method of some class, we have to specify which object of that class we were invoking that method on. So the way we do this is pretty much like what we do in Java. So we would include the name of the object, a dot, which is called the dot operator, and then we would have our close method. So that's why we would have me, which is the name of our object, the dot, and then the close. And notice here that both me and close are capitalized. As I mentioned before, Visual Basic likes to have everything capitalized for whatever reason, so we just kind of go along with it. But whenever we enter that and execute it, our current form, whichever form that me is associated with, will close. The other common statement I want to talk about is the text property. So as a reminder, the way this property works is whatever is stored in here is going to display the text associated with that particular tool or that particular form. So let's say we have something like me.text. Well, whatever text is stored in this property is going to be displayed in the form title. So for example, I could have something like me.text be assigned the string, this is the form title. And I can put this in my code. And what that means is I'm going to take the string that's on the right-hand side of the equal sign, and I'm going to assign that string to the text property of the form that's called me, which is the current form. Because remember, we just mentioned that me is the name of the current form object. Now, I could have other form names. So like if I have something called form2 and I do something like form2.text equals some text, then in that form, the text property will be set to whatever that text is. So in this particular case, whatever form we're currently looking at, the text property is going to be set to this is the form title. So what that simply means is when I run my program and display this form, whatever it is, the title on the top title bar is going to say this is the form title. Now, most tools and objects have some text field. I mean, if you look at all the tools, just about every single one of them, if not all of them, have a text field. So we mentioned before as an example, labels have a text field. So I can have something like this, where maybe I have some label that's called LB test, and what we're going to do is say lbtest.text equals welcome to VB with an exclamation point. And what that does is we're going to take the string welcome to VB and we're going to assign that to the text property of lbtest. And here we're saying lbtest is an object of the label class. So what we see here is that if we want to modify the text property of a form or a particular tool, well, we can do this either using the text property itself, or we can directly modify it in our code as well.